Good afternoon and welcome to today's episode of NWCR's Removing That Liberal Blindfold for this the 24th day of November in the year of our Lord 2025. This article that I got from the publication called The Vigilant Fox, titled Inside the Dark History of Global Population Control. It goes without saying a lot of what is going on in this world today most people don't even know about. Please subscribe to our daily updates. They are recorded and placed on Rumble, BitChute, and YouTube for your convenience. Listen to the end and then like and subscribe to them so we can get promoted in the ratings so more can see the truth that the media is hiding from all of us. And thank you in advance. This is a long one, but it's well worth the time to know what is going on in this world, many times against unknowing people. Involuntary sterilization is disturbing enough, but China's approach made everything else look restrained by comparison. Bill Gates once said, quote, "The world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%, unquote. For decades, global health institutions have openly discussed managing population growth through medical interventions, and entire nations have paid the price for it. In the developing world, sterilizing vaccines were tested on women who never even consented. Entire communities suddenly found themselves unable to have children, and no one was told why. But as brutal as that was, it looks almost tame compared to what China unleashed on its own population. Most people think population control is an abstract idea, something distant, maybe even noble. But the truth is far more horrifying. Behind the slogans are real victims. Families torn apart, women sterilized by force, mass abortions, murder, and millions of lives quietly erased. And nowhere is that unthinkable cruelty more visible than in China's one-child policy. For years, almost no one truly understood what was happening, until one brave team of journalists risked everything to expose it. Now, reading this is a dark read. It is disturbing to say the least, but we must understand, or it will not stop, the immense cruelty of population control campaigns. Our modern world is full of illusions. War looks like a video game. Public health sounds compassionate. And population control sounds like an abstract idea that's going to save a dying planet. But behind those euphemisms are policies so cruel they defy imagination, carried out by individuals who probably thought they were doing something good. That's what makes this story so terrifying. When the COVID vaccine rolled out, many suspected fertility issues might emerge soon after. That suspicion didn't come from conspiracy. It came from history and was a completely logical question to ask. Global health institutions have spent decades experimenting with sterilizing vaccines. Modified tetanus shots used across the developing world that quietly induced infertility. That's very real, and the medical literature even has a name for it: immunocontraception. In every era, the ruling elite has believed it is their duty to control the population. What stopped them was never ethics, it was logistics. Once Depo-Provera made long-term infertility possible with one injection, forced campaigns exploded across the third world. When sterilizing vaccines became possible, they were deployed, often secretly. The question was never should we do it, it was can we get away with it? And unfortunately, in many cases, they have. But now, more than ever, people are waking up to what public health really is and what the ruling elites aim to do. To truly understand the cruelty and the reality of population control, look no further than China's one-child policy. Between 1979 and 2015, the Chinese government enforced this heartless policy with brutal precision. Forced abortions, sterilization, and death and abandonment of millions of baby girls. It's one of the most chilling examples of modern social engineering, and it all happened with Western approval. In the 1900s, flights between China and the U.S. were filled with couples adopting baby girls. Most of those families never knew the dark truth. Many of those babies were taken from their mothers by the state or sold by local officials for profit. A British documentary called The Dying Rooms tried to expose the truth of what was happening in China. Infants were literally left to starve and die in orphanages as the world looked away. And those were the ones who made it to the orphanages in the first place. Others were killed in the womb, killed shortly after birth by lethal injection, or being thrust into a bucket of water or left on the street. China's government denied everything, but witnesses knew it was real. The Western elite didn't just know about China's one-child policy, they encouraged it. In exchange for economic support, Western leaders pressured China to adopt harsh population measures they couldn't enforce in their own countries. It's the same moral cowardice we saw when global leaders applauded China's lockdowns during COVID, praising totalitarian cruelty as necessary and an example we all should look to. No, thank you. China's one-child policy wasn't the first population control atrocity, and it won't be the last. In America, up to 40% of Native American women were sterilized without consent in the 1960s and 70s. In India, Prime Minister Indira Gandhi sterilized 6 million men by force. In Germany, Nazi doctors sterilized whoever they deemed unfit to reproduce. And they even defended it at Nuremberg by citing U.S. law. Incomprehensible cruelty spreads like wildfire when governments try to play God. From a letter from a man named Joe on April 5, 2022 came this: "My wife is Kenyan, and sometime around 15 years ago when she was still a teenager, she was forced to take one of those tetanus vaccines. She and another student who had refused were cornered in a room and forcibly administered the shot. Nearly every one of her high school mates whom she is still in touch with have developed some sort of fertility-related problem and difficulty bringing a baby to full term. My wife herself has had multiple miscarriages, horribly painful and several weeks-long menstrual cycles, sudden death of the baby in the womb, and more. We have one baby who lived. The doctor who delivered her via emergency C-section said he had never seen anything like it. Everything was going wrong. The baby stopped developing early on. Our daughter is now 5 and is normal in every way, but it is a miracle. The girls from her village who were too poor for school fees were spared from the vaccine, and they have not had any problem conceiving or giving birth. This horror is still going on in Kenya, now with the COVID shots. We were able to get documentation for most of her family without actually having to get the vaccines. But her sister, who was away at boarding school, was just forced to get the first COVID shot, or she would have been prevented from sitting the national exam. We weren't able to reach her because she has no phone, and I'm not sure what we could have done anyway. Because without the exam results, you can't do much of anything in Kenya. These people who conceived of and are executing these programs are monsters, not human beings. They deserve the death sentence. the same sentence they have administered to millions of unsuspecting, unwilling subjects all throughout the world, and especially in Africa. When you look at these atrocities, one of the questions always surfaces: how could anyone, let alone so many people, go along with it? The answer is almost always the same: apathy. When people are disconnected from others and when they stop seeing human beings and start seeing policy outcomes, cruelty becomes pretty normal. That's how atrocities like this happen. Orphanage workers in China were not unlike modern doctors during COVID. Both were under immense pressure. Both followed orders that harmed others to preserve their own lives. And in the process, both learned to suppress their empathy, because that was the only way to survive inside a system built on cruelty. Once compassion dies, anything becomes possible. The problem here isn't that humanity is evil. It's that our systems are designed to dull our empathy. And for a lot of people, it works. Medicine today runs on quotas and checklists. Doctors see patients as data, and there's a lot of pressure placed on them to keep it that way. Bureaucrats see lives as statistics. The result? The same moral blindness that allowed infanticide in China now enables medical coercion and censorship in the West. And if we don't see it for what it is and do something about it, who knows where it may take us? Throughout history, ethical systems, often grounded in faith or a shared spiritual truth, have guided societies as they grow, experience crises, and simply exist. But now, as technology advances and belief systems fade, morality has become negotiable. Ethics have been redefined to justify profit. For example, abortion is a right, but a vaccine refusal is a crime. When morality becomes a business model, civilization starts to devour itself. Communist regimes have always targeted religion. Why? Because faith gives people the strength to say no to tyranny. When the practicing of faith dies, the state becomes God. Something has to fill that void. People need an authority to turn to. That's how you get the Cultural Revolution. That's how you get the one-child policy. And that's how modern societies justify locking people in their homes for their own safety. In 2016, China finally repealed their one-child policy, but the damage was already done. Strangely, the government instantly reversed its propaganda, urging families to have more children. The same leaders who once celebrated population control were now panicking over demographic collapse. But it was far too late. The long-term consequences were absolutely catastrophic. There is a nation now of elderly people with no one to care for. A society consumed by greed, people driven to hoard wealth out of fear. They die alone. An entire generation is traumatized by forced abortions and sterilizations. And we must never forget the 30 to 40 million missing women, now resulting in a bride shortage that fuels human trafficking across Asia. Why? Because Chinese society prioritized boys. If you could only have one child, most wanted that child to be a boy. This led literally to baby girls being thrown away like trash. The imbalance is so severe today that women are trafficked into China from 8 different countries to fill the massive void. Even the Chinese government admits it, reporting revenues of trafficked brides. Their failed and inhumane policies didn't stabilize society, it shattered it. And it left behind a generation haunted by what they were forced to do, and left to deal with the consequences. There were numerous consequences of the one-child policy. Children raised as only children became the center of their parents' lives, but they were emotionally fragile. Many grew up self-centered, unable to form deep relationships. They were expected to care for their parents and grandparents, yet often lacked the maturity or the stability to do so. Social collapse begins not with war, but with the slow erosion of the family. And it doesn't take a genius to see that's happening all around us at this very moment. Today's technology is amplifying the danger of what led to the one-child policy in China. For the first time in history, small groups of unaccountable elites can harm billions of people through bioweapons, mass sterilization, and global vaccine campaigns. When moral systems fail to keep up with technological power, humanity becomes a collateral damage. The very same mindset behind sterilization campaigns and the horrific one-child policy now hides under a new banner: public health. Lockdowns, forced vaccines, censorship, all justified by the same belief that some suffering is necessary for the greater good. That's not science, that's ideology, and it has nothing to do with our health. History's cruelest moments share one pattern. A tiny group insists they know what's best for everyone, and they force it on everyone. They silence dissent, punish compassion, and call it progress. And each time it ends the same way, with human suffering rationalized as policy success. Every time humanity replaces compassion with control, the same tragedy repeats. Population control didn't end with China, it just changed its form. It's digital, it's medical, and it's going global. Unless people reclaim their empathy, the next chapter may be even darker. Evil doesn't always look like hate. Sometimes it looks like science. Sometimes it wears a lab coat. And sometimes it smiles while telling you it's for your own good. Thank you for watching, and as I will always say, we shall not be ruled. NWCR is heard through Conservative Nation Media, or C&M, from behind that silver microphone of freedom, with the voice of reason in this increasingly unreasonable world, where America always wins. Again, please like and subscribe to my video accounts on Rumble, BitChute, and YouTube. Then leave us your comments to let us know what you are thinking. Have a good day, and God bless you all.